The story begins in Spain, specifically in the city of Vigo, where a man named Manel and his wife Julia are visiting Manel's sister, Belen. Manel spends time playing with his niece, and after he falls asleep, he says goodbye to Belen, mentioning that they need to leave early to avoid traffic. On their way out of town, Manel and Julia get into an argument. Distracted by the fight, Julia, who is driving, loses focus, resulting in an accident. Tragically, Julia dies in the incident. A year later, on one morning, Manel wakes up as usual to have breakfast and feed his cat, LUCOLO, while checking some messages and thinking about his late wife. He doesn't pay attention to the news on the TV, which is talking about the possibility of closing the borders due to the outbreak of a dangerous epidemic called TSG. Manel gets into his car, and on the way, he listens to the radio where the topic of the epidemic comes up again, but he still doesn't give it much importance. Manel arrives at a dock where he meets two women who wanted to buy his boat. After boarding the boat and recalling memories with his wife, Manel changes his mind and decides not to sell it. On his way back home, Manel decided to buy some essentials from a store where customers were instructed not to purchase more than 2 units of the same product. However, most people ignored this rule. Manel returned home and listened to the news again, which confirmed that the epidemic had spread to most cities in Spain. Moments later, he received a call from Belen, who informed him that she and her husband were moving to the Canary Islands due to her husband's job in the military. She also mentioned that the Canary Islands were a safe place, unaffected by the outbreak. Belen asked her brother to join them there, but he initially refused. However, she insisted and eventually convinced him to come. The next day, Manel wakes up, packs his belongings, and heads to the airport by car, of course, accompanied by his beloved cat, LUCOLO. Once again, through the radio waves, news arrives about a new variant of the virus that spreads faster and is even more dangerous. Manel reaches the airport and waits in a long line to complete the procedures for boarding his flight. However, he and the other passengers are shocked to learn that all flights have been canceled for unknown reasons. This creates chaos, escalating further when someone grabs a weapon from one of the police officers. The situation spirals out of control, blending chaos with panic, and everyone, including Manel, flees the scene. Manel decides to return home, and on the way, he discovers that a state of emergency has been declared, causing massive traffic jams. This leads Manel to abandon his car and walk home, despite the distance being more than 6 kilometers. Upon arriving in his neighborhood, Manel notices the presence of an ambulance and several soldiers. The reason for their presence is that one of Manel's neighbors has been infected with the virus and now poses a danger to the residents. Manel dozes off for a while and wakes up to the sound of the phone ringing. Who's calling? His sister Belen, who informs him that she and her husband arrived safely after catching the last flight before the airspace was closed. She tells him that there are reports about the government possibly setting up quarantine zones to control the outbreak. Belen urges her brother not to leave the house or go to these zones because the more people gather, the higher the infection rates will be. After ending the call, Manel grabs his phone and watches some clips on social media showing infected individuals becoming violent, attacking, and biting anyone they encounter as if they were zombies. Shortly after, Manel receives a message announcing the declaration of a state of emergency across the country and that stores will close early. This prompts him to head to the nearest store to buy food supplies. However, Manel discovers it's already too late. Everything in the store has been bought or stolen. He manages to find some essentials at a gas station, but as he prepares to leave, he is shocked to see one of the infected attacking a police officer brutally. The infected person then tries to lunge at Manel as well, but the officer fires his gun, saving Manel at the last moment. Manel rushes back home and begins locking all the doors and windows, as well as building barriers from simple materials to protect himself from any potential attacks by the infected. Meanwhile, the government starts evacuating residents and transporting them by buses to the nearest quarantine zone. Manel chose not to leave with them, despite the government stating that anyone who does not comply with the orders will face legal consequences. After 2 weeks, no one remained in the neighborhood except for Manel, who began to face 2 problems. The first was the communication outage, and the bigger issue was that food supplies were running out. This forced him to leave the house wearing a diving suit to avoid being bitten by the infected. He started searching through the other houses, hoping to find some food or anything that might help him in his ordeal, but unfortunately the result was the same, nothing. In one of the houses, he is surprised to find an elderly woman, his neighbor, Gabriela. Gabriela also didn't have any food, but she knew which neighbors had bought large amounts of supplies before leaving, as she had been watching everyone from her window. She reasoned that those who left likely couldn't take all their food with them. Following Gabriela's instructions, Manel successfully found the food supplies as well as a motorcycle that would help him get around. Manel returns to his home after having dinner with Gabriela. While tuning the radio, he hears a message stating that survivors are being transported from Arousa Bay to the Canary Islands. Manel agrees with Gabriella via the radio that he will take her with him to Arousa Bay. She reluctantly agrees, as she does not want to be a burden on him. However, when the time to leave arrives, Manel discovers that Gabriella has left him a note saying, "Go and save yourself." As Manel leaves Gabriella's house, he is attacked by an infected woman but manages to fend her off with great difficulty. Immediately afterward, Manel sets off on his motorcycle, accompanied by his cat, LUCOLO, in an attempt to reach one of the boats. Since the roads are blocked, Manel decides to take an alternative route through the forest. However, he is shocked to find hundreds of zombies chasing him. He tries to escape, but he crashes into a pile of zombie corpses and falls. When he attempts to restart the motorcycle, it won't work, forcing him to flee on foot with the zombies close behind him. Arriving at the docks, Manel manages to lock the entry gate, keeping the zombies at bay. However, he faces a new problem. All the boats, including his own, have disappeared. While surveying the area, Manel spots a boat not far from the dock and swims toward it. But as he climbs aboard, he is horrified to discover a zombie baby inside. Acting quickly, Manel finds a small, functional boat nearby and sets off toward the coordinates he heard on the radio, hoping the rescue boat is still there. After a long journey, Manel finally encounters a group of armed men who escort him to a much larger ship. However, it quickly becomes clear that this is not the ship Manel heard about on the radio. The captain and crew appear to be from a foreign country and they don't speak any Spanish. Fortunately, there is a man named Victor who speaks Spanish and serves as a translator. Manel explains that he wants to go to the Canary Islands, as his sister told him it is one of the safest places, protected by soldiers and medical staff who have established a secure refuge from the zombie virus outbreak. But Victor informs him that the ship is currently undergoing repairs and can't set sail until it's fixed. That night, while they are chatting, Manel knows that Victor is skilled at piloting helicopters. Victor then leaves Manel in one of the cabins to sleep. While resting, he notices a group of survivors boarding the ship. However, the next morning when Manel goes to get food, he can't find any of the survivors. Curious, Manel asks Victor about the survivors from the previous night, but Victor claims he didn't see anyone. Manel was not convinced by Victor's words and kept pressing him to reveal the truth about the ship and whether the survivors were being held captive. Manel told Victor that he knew the location of a helicopter near one of the hospitals, and they could escape together, but Victor refused to tell him anything. That night, Manel sneaked into the depths of the ship to learn more about his situation. Unexpectedly, he discovered two survivors who were tied up. Manel managed to free one of them, but suddenly a crew member appeared and shot one of the survivors. And just as he's about to shoot Manel as well, Victor intervenes and takes out the gunman and saves Manel. The three attempts to escape using a small boat, but the armed men discover them and open fire on the boat, resulting in the survivor's death and Victor being seriously wounded in his shoulder. The two make it to the shore, and Manel immediately searches for a car to take Victor to the hospital. After finding a car, Manel drives to the hospital, bringing his cat along with them. Upon their arrival at the hospital, they are attacked by zombies, but Manel successfully fights them off and eliminates them. Manel hurries Victor inside the hospital. There, Victor urges Manel to remove the bullet lodged in his shoulder, but Manel, inexperienced in medical procedures, struggles to figure out how to extract the bullet safely. While searching for anesthesia, Manel hears noises coming from the upper floor. Hoping to find someone who can help Victor, Manel cautiously heads upstairs. Unfortunately, a group of zombies starts chasing him. He escapes and returns to the operating room where he left Victor and LUCOLO, but he finds them gone and becomes surrounded by zombies. But suddenly, a woman named Lucia appears and urges him to follow her. After escaping from the zombies, Manel asks the woman to help Victor. Lucia leads Manel and Victor to her hideout, where Manel meets a woman named Cecilia, who is caring for 3 children. Manel successfully convinces Cecilia to save Victor. Lucia soon informs Manel that they have successfully removed the bullet from Victor's shoulder. Since Victor needs time to recover, Lucia invites Manel to stay with them until his friend has fully healed. During this time, Manel asks Lucia if she knows the location of the hospital's helicopter, explaining that he searched for it without success. Lucia tells him that the helicopter is located in the quarantine zone, which is now overrun with zombies. The helicopter was originally used to transport medical supplies, but the quarantine center collapsed within just half a day due to the rapid spread of the outbreak, which infected everyone, including patients, doctors, and soldiers. Reaching the helicopter won't be easy, as it is located in a different section of the building. Not only that, but without enough weapons, getting through the hundreds of zombies in that area would be impossible. As Manel heads to the rooftop, he unexpectedly receives a signal on his phone and sees several video messages from his sister Belen, who had been trying to contact him for a long time. While Manel attempts to call Belen, he suddenly hears gunfire coming from the group of armed men from the ship who have arrived to scout the area. Manel urges Lucia and Cecilia to get ready to head toward the helicopter with Victor and the children, as it is their last and only chance to escape safely from both the zombies and the armed men. On their way to the helicopter, a zombie attacks Cecilia and bites her. Manel intervenes and takes him out. Cecilia knows she has been infected. She asks them to leave her behind and tells Lucia to take care of the children. Manel and his companions find a group of zombies near the helicopter and must find a way to get past them. Manel comes up with the idea of using some carts to form a circular metal barricade, allowing them to move through the zombies, hoping they won't be noticed in the crowd. At first, their plan works, but they accidentally make a noise, alerting the zombies, who begin swarming toward them. Manel and the others fend off the zombies, preventing them from scaling the fence. When they reach the gate, Lucia hurries to open it, directing everyone into the helicopter. While Manel locks the gate behind them, he fights off the zombies that manage to climb over the fence. Moments later, just as Victor starts the helicopter, the armed men arrive, shooting at the surrounding zombies. The captain then demands that Victor exit the helicopter, threatening to shoot them, all with no other option. Manel unlocks the second gate, allowing the zombies to flood in and attack the armed men taking cover behind the fence. Manel watches as the helicopter lifts off, then fights his way through the remaining zombies to catch up with Lucia's help. He finally climbs aboard safely. As soon as the helicopter is in the air and away from the zombies, Manel receives a call from his sister Beline, who tells him not to come to the Canary Islands because it is no longer safe there either. And so the story of our movie ends for this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. See you next time.